We will call this meeting of the Safe and Successful Kids Interlocal meeting to order. Let's see, the Nebraska Opens Meeting Act is posted between the two doors and directly to the back of the building. And could we please have a roll call?
Barb Beyer,
Here.
James Michael Bowers,
Here.
Kathy Danick,
Here.
Larry and Gaylor Baird,
Here.
Don Mayhew,
Don is excused.
Brody Weber,
Here.
Thank you. You have before you a set of minutes from our November 7th, 2024 meeting. Can I get a motion for approval, please?
I move approval.
Is there a second, Barb?
I second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. Are there any questions, concerns? All right, then could we please call the roll?
Barb Beyer,
Yes.
James Michael Bowers,
Yes.
Kathy Danick,
Yes.
Larry and Gaylor Baird,
Sorry.
Abstain. I wasn't present.
Brody Weber,
Yes.
motion carried.
Right, thank you. Let's see, right now we have public comment for items not listed on the agenda. I have no blue cards. Do we have anybody here? All right, then we'll just skip right over that section. And right now, if I could ask Mr. John Neal, Dr. John Neal, to meet me at the podium. We have a resolution recognizing Dr. Neal. Dr. Neal retired from the LPS and then took on the job as working at the Foundation for Lincoln Public Schools. But more than that, he spent his lifetime working with and for kids. And he was also one of the original founders and arguers for this Safe and Successful Kids Interlocal Board. So we owe him a great debt of gratitude. This is in the form of a motion. Normally, the president can't make one, so one of you will have to do it for me. Whereas Dr. John Neal has, throughout his career, exhibited a commitment in excellence in public education, serving as an inspiration to all. And whereas Dr. Neal, through his tireless dedication and outstanding contributions, cultivated relationships between Lincoln Public Schools, local, state, and national government entities built on collaboration and transparent communication. And whereas Dr. Neal was instrumental in the creation of the Safe and Successful Kids Interlocal Agreement to address the community's focus on school safety. And whereas Dr. Neal stressed the importance of transparent communication by continuously and openly sharing with the community the results of the School Resource Officer Program in schools and student behavior referrals. And whereas Dr. Neal's work in the development of the Safe and Successful Kids Interlocal Agreement addressed school safety through a proactive approach of strengthening community learning centers. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Safe and Successful Kids Interlocal Board does hereby congratulate Dr. John Neal on a long and distinguished career and professes sincere gratitude to him for his years of service to the staff, students, and families and the community of Lincoln. Signed this 27th day of February 2025 by myself, Kathy Danick, Board President of the Safe and Successful Kids Interlocal, and James Michael Bowers, Vice President of the Safe and Successful Kids Interlocal. We give him an applause.
Safe and Successful Kids Interlocal Agreement and the board and the programs that it supervises are really important to me. So this is a very important honor, and I really appreciate it. It wouldn't have been possible without just an incredible number of people's commitment, and I'd just like to recognize a few of them. While I'm proud to be a part of the team that helped bring the agreement together, it really is comes from the vision and persistence of Barb Bartle, the president of the Lincoln Community Foundation at the time, Mayor Chris Beitler, Superintendent Steve Joel, and the Lincoln City Council members and Lincoln Board of Education members at the time, who had never seen an organization like this. In fact, it's somewhat unique in the nation. And to step forward with that commitment, I think, took a great deal of courage at the time, and that needs to be recognized. SSK continues to flourish because the city and the district continue its commitment, knowing that it has an impact on the outcomes for students and our families. And another reason it flourishes, and it's probably why I'm most proud of my association with the SSK, is it continues to improve. It doesn't look like it was originally proposed in 2017, and that's really important because it's adapted to meet the needs of the students and families of those who have changed over the last 7 years. And it's also improved because, and it's because of the staff that are behind me right now and the city staff that aren't here right now, like Joe Wright, Ryan Zabawa, Nola Derby-Bennett, and others who have continued to improve their programming day to day, month to month, year to year in service to our students. So a special thanks to them for keeping the SSK alive. And finally, for my partner, Denise Pierce, it's been her ingenious ideas, her thoughtful questioning, her amazing organizational support that we all benefit from that has kept the Safe and Successful Kids Interlocal and the board a living organization that will flourish in the future. So thank you very much.
Could I get a motion? Barb? you and
Yes,
Brody?
I so move approval of the resolution as read.
Thank you. And
And I would second that resolution.
Brody Weber, thank you. Is there any comments, anything you want to say? All right, I guess we've said it all. Nope, the mayor.
I just wanted to express my gratitude to you, Dr. Neal. You've been a constant figure of strength and stability and compassion and wisdom for the public schools and a great partner to the city of Lincoln. And we've so enjoyed your leadership over the years and appreciate your friendship too. So thank you. And thank you for being the kind of retired employee who comes back to help in a time of need. It's just another reason why you're so amazing. Thank you.
Could we please call the roll now?
Yes. Barb,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Lyrian,
Yes.
Brody,
Yes.
motion carried.
Thank you. Okay, moving on, we now have a staff report, levels of service discussion. Dr. Scretta, would you please come forward with LPS, and Denise with Lincoln Parks and Recreation?
Actually, Madam Chair, if you're okay with it, we'll start out with NOLA doing the CLC report,
That's
Well-
fine with me.
and we'll go ahead and end then with the staffing discussion.
Perfect, I'll just move on to, are you ready, Nola, for your report?
Yep, I'm
Perfect.
ready.
So we'll just change the spots on the agenda on that.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nola Derby-Bennett, and I serve as the Director of Lincoln Community Learning Centers for Lincoln Public Schools. And it is my honor to be able to share with you our data report for this previous school year. So just as a reminder, this report covers the 23-24 school year, not the year that we're in. So I always think that's important to sort of point that out because we're looking at, 9 months ago. So let's see here. There we are. Okay, so I want to start out first by just acknowledging the CLC office leadership team. We have a community team of 3 individuals. We have an extended learning opportunities team of our 2 curriculum specialists, and then all of our lead agency partners and our school community coordinators. And then we have an office team, which includes a budget and finance manager, a secretary, and an evaluator in our office. And we also have a wonderful set of partnerships with all of our lead agency partners. I will point out that we are down 1 partner this year. We had 1 partner that made a decision to move on from being a lead agency in our system, but other partners stepped up and filled that role for us, so we appreciate their partnership. All right, so let's just get right into it. Let's start looking at our budget. So this is the budget for the 23-24 school year. And we've got kind of all of our different buckets of funding broken out here. One bucket that I want to be very explicit about pointing out is the ESSER funds. And that was over $1.4 million. Those are recovery funds. Those are still part of the COVID recovery funds, and that is not a bucket of money that will continue into this school year. So that 23-24 was the last year that we had those funds available to us. So this is our overall budget. This is the income. And then I'm going to move forward to our expenses. And so I've broken out our expenses into two different charts. The first, the sort of one that's up on the upper left, is our leadership funding. So that funds all of our leadership systems as well as our school community coordinator salaries. And then the lower pie chart is our programming expenses. So you'll see some different sources of those funds based on how the dollars were designated. Let's talk a little bit about some of the great things that happened last year. The biggest of those things was that Lincoln Community Learning Centers was awarded a national recognition from the U.S. Department of Education. We received the Engage Every Student Award last year, so Dr. Skretta and I got the chance to travel to Washington, D.C. and receive that award from the previous U.S. Secretary of Education, Dr. Miguel Cardona. And that is really, I want to say that is really an award that I think acknowledges sort of what we've been talking about with safe and successful kids, and I really believe that it's a community award. I don't feel like it's something that we in my office necessarily earned individually. I think it's a demonstration of the commitment of our community over the last 25 years and the partnership and the selfless kind of conversation that's happened, and all of our community partners who have also poured a lot of resources and commitment into this work. So I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that that's really a community award that we were able to bring back to Lincoln. So we're going to talk a little bit about data. The first area that I want to really point out is our levels of service related to the hours of attendance that our students are attending. And the band that I want to highlight here is our less than 15 hours band. So every year we keep track of every student who attends, no matter how frequently they attend. And this band is particularly interesting to me because it's decreasing. And what that means is if you look at the other hours, they're all increasing. So we have fewer students who are coming and then never coming back than we've ever had before. So I think once kids are attending, they're getting hooked on all of the amazing opportunities and programming that they're experiencing, and we start to see those higher hours bands increase because kids are coming and they're staying. They're being valued. They're being asked, what are the kinds of things that you want to do in CLC? And then we're able to create those things for our students. So I think that's a really significant number because it means that we're hooking kids and they're getting what they need. And then the demographics below just sort of are broken out related to our free or reduced lunch participants, multilingual learners, our students who are racially and ethnically diverse, and then our students who are verified for special education. And you can see that those numbers stay pretty consistent across the years. I will say that the free reduced lunch participants is up a little bit in 23-24, and I think that's because of our CEP schools, and more schools are designated as 100% free last year. And then here's just another breakdown of free reduced lunch participants compared to CLC schools overall and total LPS. That number is no surprise. Of course, we're serving more free reduced lunch students than our district numbers because that's how our funding designates the work that the schools that we serve. We have some NSCAS data this year, which is exciting because for the previous few years, we haven't been able to capture these numbers. I want to point out particularly our CLC program attenders in grades 6, 7, and 8. You can see that those students are scoring above their peers in the CLC schools, and they're actually approaching the district numbers. So we know that students who attend CLC are getting extra dosage of all of these areas that our NSCAS scores are looking at, and that's very intentional. So our sites are all partnering with their principals to identify what are the school improvement goals and how can we bring that same kind of programming into the CLC to give our students extra dosage of these areas in order for them to stay on track and to almost, are getting close to reaching our overall LPS numbers. Yes, ma'am.
What does NSCAS stand for? I'm sure lots
Oh,
of people
that's
up
such
here
a
know
good
what that
question.
is.
It's our statewide testing. I don't know what the acronym stands for, actually. I can let you know that, but it's the statewide testing, statewide standardized testing. ELA is English Language Arts, and then we have math and science scores as well.
I think it's just Nebraska Student-Centered Assessment System.
Thank you. Okay, so then we're going to look at math. Again, our CLC program attenders are outscoring their peers in their schools, and again are approaching our LPS overall scores in grades 3, 4, 5, and 7 for this year. And then in science, our NSCAS or our CLC students are outscoring their peers, and again are approaching our LPS numbers in both grades 5 and 8, which is the 2 grades that they take that test. So overall, like really great. Oops, I think I went too far there. Really great opportunities for our students to get extra exposure. A lot of our students tell us that some of those opportunities are the most fun opportunities that they get when they get to put their hands on the things that they're learning in class. So I think that's why we see higher numbers, is because the students who are interested really dive into those clubs. And then we have wellness data to compare this year, a little bit different. We're not comparing specifically our CLC students, but we have our Title I and our non-Title I students who are passing the PACER, which is the examination that students take in PE, and it's a measure of physical fitness for our students. Our non-Title students are way outpacing our Title I schools. And so we've focused on that a little bit, and I'll talk about some of the efforts that we've been implementing in CLCs to try to address some of those deficiencies in our Title I schools. We created a sports equity league, and so a couple of years ago we piloted basketball and soccer we started with 8 of our CLC schools, and we piloted the opportunity for our students to participate in essentially its intramural leagues. So our schools had created teams. They have practice 1 day a week, and then they have a game 1 day a week. We have coaches and referees at all of those games, and we really wanted to target students who we know don't have the opportunity to participate in any organized sports elsewhere in the community. Students who showed interest, but for a multitude of barriers, weren't able to engage in organized sports in our community. So we piloted that for a couple of years, and then we wrote a grant to the Community Health Endowment, and we're funded for 3 years. We also were able to get funding from the Nebraska Department of Education. They have an extended learning opportunities grant that we were able to secure as well. One of the things that we were really intentional about when creating our Sports Equity League, of course, was looking at those PACER numbers and our Title I school students not having as much opportunity to be physically active, but we were also really looking at some of the LPS strategic plan goals. One of the major ones was the family and community engagement, which has kind of emerged as an unintended outcome of positive outcome of some of the sports equity work. In these photos, you see parents sitting alongside of classroom teachers who have come to cheer on their students after school, not on contract time, but just wanted to have the opportunity to celebrate their students' success and the excitement that they're all feeling. But what we were hearing from both classroom teachers and parents was that this was a really great opportunity for those individuals to be together and celebrate these students in a way that wasn't classroom performance based. They were able just to, all come together and create community around their students' school. So that was really an amazing outcome. I've also been working really closely with both JJ Tokchek and Matt Avey, who oversee our athletics and our PE and health curriculum, and we're starting to see some outcomes as far as students engaging in athletics and students starting to turn around some of those PACER data. So we will continue to track that moving forward, but we know that students who are involved attend and they graduate. So we're hoping that over time we're able to report that this work has had some impact on both our strategic plan and our graduation rates. So I talked a little bit about some of the funding that we've been able to secure that has helped us to grow and expand this work. We are now having all 20 of our elementary schools participating in soccer in the fall, basketball in the spring, and then we're also implementing a volleyball league. And then we also have students who, if any of those menu of sports are not their thing, we also have the opportunity to be able to allow students to do a running club, and then they can enroll in they can sign up for either the pumpkin run or the mayor's run in the fall or spring and participate in that as well. So we just in our fall soccer, we had 50+ games and over 200 students participate. We now are in basketball and volleyball season. We do them off season so that we can have high school students help coach and ref. So we're also trying to kind of get our high school students involved in learning those skills as well. And so we're in the process right now of planning the basketball tournament. So finalizing details on that, but that will be coming up in the spring. And then another outcome of the sports equity work was that we really wanted to give students the opportunity, if something that they participated in piqued their interest, we wanted to bring in our community club sports sponsors to give them an opportunity to sort of dive in and get connected to a more formalized system. We were very intentional in partnering with the Lincoln Lancaster Health Department, and we invited clubs who offered scholarships. So we didn't want to put students or families in a position where they really found that they loved something, but then they got to the sign up and realized this was way too expensive. So we wanted to make sure that anybody that we invited to the sign up event was an organization that could scholarship students all the way to free in order for them to participate. We also did some sports equipment donations. So we didn't want we didn't want equipment costs to be a barrier either. So when students and families were at the event, which was held at Color Middle School in January, they had the opportunity to leave with all of the equipment that they needed in order to participate in those sports. And then additionally, for many years, we've offered a spring break camp for middle school students. Our spring break is coming up just in a couple of weeks, and our middle school students will have the opportunity to participate in several different sports. Last year, I think we had about 75 students participate, which is pretty amazing for middle school students to elect to come to school during a break. So I have not seen the numbers yet this year, but we're very excited about the opportunity to give them a little bit of extra exposure to some of the sports that they love as well. We had the opportunity last year to partner with the National Coalition for Community Schools, who helped us with a new strategic plan. So I want to talk a little bit about what our 2015 strategic plan goals were and how that has lended us to kind of moving forward and looking at what the future for Lincoln CLCs look like. We worked on some strategies for deepening our current CLC work. At that time in 2015, we had 25 sites. We're at 29 now. We also worked on kind of putting a map together for how to expand to all of the Lincoln Public Schools at some point. We really needed to figure out what the cost was there. So determining those costs, I think, led to some of the conversations that got us started on the Safe and Successful Kids Interlocal Agreement. And then we also looked at what the leadership looked like for our CLC network going forward. So when I started in this role in 2017, there was a full-time director, there was one full-time secretary, there was a 30-hour-a-week curriculum specialist, and there was a half-time data secretary. So if you go back to our office structure now, you can see that the efforts that, or the recommendations that came out of that 2015 strategic plan really led us to the expansion of our leadership team, which then helps to really support our entire network. So like I said, we worked with the Coalition for Community Schools. Ryan Hurley, who's the Midwest director out of Milwaukee, came to Lincoln several times and met with a variety of different groups of stakeholders and really dove into what does it mean to have successful students, thriving families, and strong neighborhoods? What does it look like if we're experiencing that? What are the contributing and restricting factors impacting those results, and then how do we measure it? So we were able to develop some common themes in each of those areas: successful youth, thriving families, and strong neighborhoods. In the area of successful youth, we looked a lot at, we got some recommendations related to mentorship, making sure that students are connected both formally and informally to caring adults. We really wanted to make sure that in all of the work that we do, we have cultural representation. We know that behavioral health has been a huge challenge, particularly since the pandemic, and so we had a lot of themes around making sure that our students and their families have access to the resources that they need to support their mental health. We know that transportation is always a barrier, so sometimes we have students who ride the bus after school, but they really would love to stay and participate in the CLC programming. So one of the themes was how we can figure out how to provide some after-school transportation after CLC Club gets out so that we can keep those kids at school, give them those extra doses of the academic and enrichment programming, and then have them leave later on a second round of transportation. And then just access to resources, making sure that we're using our buildings in a way that students are getting their educational needs met, but they're also getting all of their other basic needs met as well. Very similar themes in thriving families. Again, cultural representation, sports clubs and programming was something that came up big from our specifically in our families area, that so many families felt like they wished that they could get their kids involved in more, but when cost and transportation are the barrier factors, they have to make other decisions, and so by being able to provide those programs, that has kind of started to address those issues. Just time, having structured and unstructured time balance. So we know that kids like to have structure and like to have programs that are structured, but also just free play is good for kids too. So finding a way to strike that balance. Transportation was another common theme with families, and then just having our schools be the hub of opportunities, again, helping to meet those basic needs for our families. And then how do we continue to support strong neighborhoods? So all of our schools are embedded in neighborhoods in our community. So how do our schools contribute to positive opportunities within our neighborhoods? So helping build infrastructure in our neighborhoods, or helping to advise on infrastructure, helping to connect our neighborhoods to resources. So our schools are not just only for the students and their families who are tied to those buildings, but truly for the entire neighborhood being able to access resources. And then all of our schools, all of our CLC schools have school neighborhood advisory committees that help to advise and share resources back and forth with one another. So I'm gonna sort of buzz through some of these systems recommendations. You'll see the bolded areas are the ones that we're really focusing on right now. And then we feel like those are the ones that are kind of the stepping stones to get us to the additional system recommendations. So the very first one is to continue to support our community builder positions. We added those positions in 2020, which, by the way, is a terrible time to add community builders. But those folks have done just an excellent job of really building up those school neighborhood advisory committees, bringing the families and the community's voices to our overall system, and making sure that those voices are represented well and loudly, so that we really are being good stewards of our community. Related to alignment and integration then, making sure that we're aligning to the LPS strategic plan. I think a couple of areas that are particularly significant for our work are the student well-being and outcomes area, as well as family and community engagement. I think we could also make an argument for the staff well-being and outcomes, particularly related to kind of the cool volunteer opportunities and the cool ways that staff can celebrate their students in a way that's not classroom-based. So just making sure that all of the work that we're doing aligns with our overall organizational strategic plan. Professional learning opportunities, kind of in a response to some of the adjustments that we had to make during COVID related to staffing, we want to make sure that we're getting back to having our school community coordinators really out of the work of managing the after-school program and really focusing on having those positions to be the facilitator of the community school strategy at their schools. So working with our lead agency partners to kind of determine what does that look like and how do we sort of get that vision back on track, knowing that we had to make some adjustments during the pandemic when there was a lot of staffing challenges. Data and evaluation, we really just continue to work on perfecting and improving the data collection that we do, really doing a lot of continuous improvement work. So when we start to see challenges or adjustments in our overall work, we want to make sure that we're being responsive to that, and we're working really hard to look at kind of what we're doing and how can we make it better. We know that financing and resources is always a challenge. One of the recommendations that came here was figuring out how to diversify our funding so that we don't rely solely on the 21st Century Community Learning Center's funds to start a new site. And then just continue to develop an expansion plan that uses equitable approach for adding additional schools. And I got through that all really quickly, but I'll stop and take questions.
Barb.
Well, first of all, I want to congratulate you on just the award, the well-deserved recognition. And I am very impressed by all the work that you're doing. The Sports Equity Initiative is huge. I bet you're getting a lot of interest on that.
Yes.
And neighborhood strengthening efforts are part of what makes Lincoln a really wonderful community to live in. But I want to direct our attention to the budget.
Okay.
And when we look at the page, at the slide number 4.
Oop, there we are.
How much of that, and when I look at, I think that at the very least $4 million there is from the federal government through the Department of Education, and possibly more with our community partners. Considering some of the changes on the federal level that are being considered with the Department of Education, I am concerned that we may not have this funding. So I'm just going to posit this idea here for this board and for us to consider. I think this wonderful presentation should be turned into a letter with a slide deck and sent to our congressional delegation so that our representatives know about this wonderful work and how we are being partners with the federal government and how very important it is that we continue to have these funding streams because the impact is incredible. It's just incredible. But I worry that our congressional delegation doesn't have the facts at hand right in front of them. And if we could offer that to them, I think that might be a good idea. I'd like to hear from others.
Comments?
I think that's a great idea. I think it's really important for people to understand the intersection of different levels of government and some of the efficiencies we are able to create. And, there's been discussion at the federal level of dispersing DOE funds to the states, but there's no clarity yet on what that would mean for a state like Nebraska with a small population versus a state like, I don't know, even Minnesota with greater population. Would we see the same level of funding coming to our community, or would it be altered by some other formula? So I think helping to see the value or the return on the investment is wise.
We can work on that.
So I've probably been here the longest working with this, because it's like the first thing I did when I became a school board member in 2001 was I went to the Saratoga CLC volunteer recognition. You've come a long way, baby. That's the only way I can say it. When I look at the diversification of the funding on this slide compared to 2001, it's significant. The partners are really, really engaging, not just with people, but with dollars. And that's huge. I do worry about losing the grants. I know you probably worry more than I do because you get a paycheck from it. But the reality is, I agree with Barb. Somehow we have to get this somewhere. This is your dollars at work. Everybody looks at federal dollars as they're all stuck in Washington, D.C., and they're not. They're dispersed back. I think you can do a Google search and see who gets federal dollars, and people would be surprised to see where the most federal dollars go. They're generally in rural areas. They're generally in rural states, lower populous, where they have to provide services that you can't afford because you have less people to share that bill. So I think that's a good idea. Maybe we make it up. Maybe we can run it on an LPS on our website somewhere for sure, and under CLCs. And I think maybe we could put a link to it from the city's website for this SSKI board. Would that doable?
Yeah, we can definitely work on that. Yep.
And Mindy's really good, and she's not here, so I'm giving her work, and she's not here. Our whole staff is really good about movies and videos and talking about what this does. I've seen some of their work. They're nationally acclaimed storytellers. So I think that would be an awesome way to reach out. If we need to find budgetary stuff, I also chair the finance committee, so you need to let me know what I need to do.
Wonderful.
And I'll sweet talk Dr. Scretta into this too.
That sounds great.
Because the reality becomes this is a huge benefit to our students. I have 2 grandchildren that are in. One is an immigrant, now an actual member of my family. Adoptions are complete. And then I have one who has special needs, and they're in different schools. And the things that they are gaining from that participation with their peers is far beyond a test score. And that trust of the community that they are now part of is so big, and these CLCs are really, really meeting that need. People might forget why we got here. And so I'm going to go back to, because I should have read this at the beginning. This is about protective, preventative, and proactive. And this is kind of proactive. And the preventative, we have our counselors, and we have our social workers, and we have our SROs. But this is what I consider the meat of the SSKI board. It's actual interaction with students. If you want to go see some fun, go to one of their soccer games. They might not know what they're doing, but they are having so much fun and appreciate. I don't know where you got the vans to cart the kids between the programming, but that was awesome. You made my granddaughter run, and she doesn't like to run, and she ran for a whole hour. So good job on the way you've expanded it. Barbara's right, we need to figure out a way to get to that funding piece and make sure it stays there. And we may have to dig into our community a little more and say, hey, we need more help during imminent changes that could come across that we can't control.
Yep. Yes, we will work on that.
Perfect. Any other questions?
No, go ahead.
James?
Well, I was just going to say, I've known you for a while, right? And so I just want to say publicly, both from when I was a school social worker, from when I was working at CLCs to being on the council, you got a really great reputation and the community really trusts you. And so I just wanted to say that publicly that, we're really lucky to have you here in Lincoln and, the folks that you work with are really lucky to have you. So thank you for all that you do. It takes a lot of skill and competency and charisma to do what you do, and you do everything perfectly.
Thank you.
Mayor?
I'll second that, and it does matter to stick with a challenge for a long period of time. It's how you make real change happen, and you're seeing that, I think, in these stats. I appreciate all the data you've provided because we can measure the progress for CLC program attenders versus the kids who aren't who are at the same schools but not coming. It's pretty impressive. It's a difference you're making. The fitness data. Wow, that is another piece where you're using data and then responding with new programming. So thank you for having such a data-driven approach to changing young people's lives for the better. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Nola, can we get a synopsis to send to our board? Because we have a couple board members, one in particular, that would like to see the wellness data.
Yep,
So
absolutely.
That would be awesome. Thank you. Brody?
Thank you, Kathy. Nola, always good to see you. I remember meeting at an LPS Citizens Academy when we were doing an overview of all the great services that LPS offers. And I remember that's when I really became so impressed by the work that you do for our community learning centers. And I just want to echo the mayor's comments and some of my colleagues' comments on the CLC Sports League, right? I think as a district representative on the city council, I try to use data to see how my, community is being impacted. And, the Police Matters map will show that Northwest Lincoln especially has a problem when it comes to youth fitness and passing the PACER test. And so I appreciate all the work that you are doing with our community partners in that realm. I do want to talk a little bit about the common themes that you had mentioned in the strategic plan, specifically access to transportation. That's something I hear about on a regular basis, right? Access to reliable transportation. It's an economic issue. It's a school issue, right? What are the conversations being had on how we can make sure that not just these students and these children have access to reliable transportation, but their family as well, so that way we can see those thriving families that you speak about?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have made some progress, particularly with our own LPS transportation department on scheduling second buses, particularly at schools where it's not necessarily walkable for kids to, be able to leave their CLC club and then get home safely. And so we have made some progress on that. And a lot of it comes from our principals sort of advocating for that benefit as well. And then we've got representation on some of the community transportation committees to kind of be that advocate and to speak to the value of our families being able to, get to where they need to be and having that be safe and reliable. We've been able to use some of the sports work as examples of, it's great that you can attend your child's game when it's at their school, but when they play at another school, it doesn't feel very good for kids when their parents aren't able to be there. And so, just using those as really anecdotal examples of why having, reliable and accessible public transportation is important. It's what makes a great community. I think, another thing that I speak a lot about is that as our community continues to expand and, and people move to the outer areas of the community, we need to make sure that the resources are available to them where they are in order to, have people be able to continue to thrive and to feel like they're, connected to their community. So it's an ongoing conversation, but I think, I can speak about those things as a professional and I see it, but we've also made really important attempts to make sure that our families feel comfortable to be able to speak on their own behalf, because I think that's really where where change gets made is when families advocate on their own behalf.
Yeah, absolutely, and I appreciate that, and, access to transportation, that's one of my top, priorities, and so however I can be of assistance, please let me know, and I think, I hate to speak for my colleagues, but I think this board, the city council, the school board would love to be a part of those ongoing conversations, that how we make sure that we're showing up for our families so those families can show up for their loved ones and their careers and their community, so, it is an ongoing conversation, and I appreciate all the work you've been doing for it.
Awesome, thank you.
Seeing no other comments, thank you so much for this report.
Thank
It's
you.
one of my favorites of the year.
Thank you for the opportunity.
And moving on, we now have the staff report.
Okay, Dr. Scretta and I are going to tag team this piece of it. For those of you who have been here for a while, you might remember that a couple of years ago, we revised the interlocal agreement to move away from formal budgeting, and instead now we focus on those 3 programmatic areas that you have heard about throughout the presentations at the last 2 meetings. So back in August, you heard about the preventive programming, so that was the mental health, behavioral health services. Back in November, you had that extensive data report on the school resource officers. That is our protective programming. And then third is what was talked about today, CLCs, or our proactive programming. So we've had some general conversations at this stage. We realize as we are all going into our budget processes about levels of service for the upcoming school year. And at this point, we are anticipating that they will be substantially similar for the next school year. On the city side, with respect to the SROs, we do anticipate that we'll continue with those 6 middle school SROs and then the 8 officers that serve our high schools along with the threat assessment officers. Had some conversations with LPD as well. And then on the city side for CLCs, city plans to continue serving at those 5 locations as either the lead agency or the core service provider, and then we also provide those grants to a couple schools as well, and we anticipate continuing those. Dr. Scretta?
Thank you, Denise. So just to kind of expand upon what Denise was sharing from the city side, coupling it with the LPS side regarding behavioral health, and again, for review, the particular data on the behavioral health components was the content provided by Student Services Director Ryan Zabava, Andrea Phillips, and Allison Hedrick back in September. We will focus on maintaining a similar level of contracted services for students. More on CLCs, and just again, just to reinforce some of the great work and the report that you heard from NOLA today, LPS plans to continue serving the 29 CLC sites with our 9 lead agencies and nearly 200 community partners. We have 3 applications for 21st Century Community Learning Centers funding going into NDE in early March. And I want to note in particular, just to express my gratitude to NOLA, who has been working tirelessly to complete those grant applications. And a number of you impaneled on the board here are quite familiar with the vagaries of grant application processes and the challenges that can be encountered. And the State Department of Education made some changes in the platform that is being used that have created an additional, I will just candidly say, an additional burden of time and effort for our grant writer, NOLA, and she is just diligently working to get those grants completed in and under the deadline, and working with her collaborators on that. So these 3 applications for 21st Century CLC funding going in next week. Renewal grants, renewal grant number 1 for Arnold, McPhee, Norwood Park, and Dawes. A second renewal grant for Calvert, Park, and North Star. And new applications, expanding program, new applications submitted for Cooser, Meadow Lane, Roper, and SCO. In addition to that, more great news to celebrate on our CLCs and their office space here in Lincoln with partnership in the Lincoln Public Schools, office space in the Bottlers Building for the CLC leadership team. This move will allow the CLC office to be centrally located at 25th and J Streets. This location will accommodate any additional staff positions that may be needed in the future as the CLCs continue to expand. I want to express our gratitude to Scott Wieskamp, Liz Standish, the Business Affairs and Operations team for all their support in making that happen. Really excited about that impending move. With that, that concludes the staff report on the levels of service anticipated for the 25-26 school year. And with that, we would entertain any additional feedback from the SSKI board on levels of service in the 3 programmatic areas discussed and reviewed throughout this past year.
Colleagues, any questions, concerns? I think everybody supported. Barb's got her hand up.
I just want to go and say thank you for the report. I really think that this partnership between the city and LPS has proved to be a wonderful benefit for our children and families, and I'm really happy to see it continue on.
I agree. Is there anyone from the public that would like to ask questions on this? Since I have no blue cards, we'll move on. Thank you so much. Do we need to adopt this report? Okay, perfect. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm thrilled about expanding CLCs. All right. Looks like we're close to the end of the meeting here. Let's see. Any other questions or concern from my colleagues? If not, we're going to make it on time and we're going to adjourn. Next meeting is September 25th at 12:15. Just an FYI, this is my last board meeting. So James, you will be in charge then. Thank you.
Just as a moment of, I don't know what's personal privilege, Brody, is that what it's called?
That's correct.
Look to the guy in the suit. No, Kathy, how long have you been on the school board for?
It'll be 24 years, May, the second week of May.
Yeah, I mean, you have been a pillar in Northeast Lincoln and an institution and a legend. And, Northeast Lincoln and our city at whole is better because of you. And so thank you for your steadfast leadership. It's been an honor to serve with you in this capacity. And thank you for all that you've done for our kids, for the next generation, for my generation. You've made the world a better place.
You guys are going to make me cry. Don't do that, because I promise I'm not going to do that. It's been an honor to serve. I'm not done serving. I'm just done on the school board. How's that? Thank you so much. And with that, we're going to adjourn this meeting 4 minutes early. Thank you so much.